Stop bullying me. Stop bullying me. No, her name isn't Holly. It's Bethany. And here she is, full of spark and vigor this hour of the morning, far more than me. Good morning, Mirador Television. Television as you've never seen it before. Quirky to say the least. I'm Keith Hayes, and this is Bethan Allardyce, and we are ready to take you through the next 2 to 3 hours with our Mondays tend to be rather strong at the moment. So after we've torn the news apart, we are then going to go to the two Bs, the two barristers, to see what's going on behind the scenes in law and also watch them pummel one another. And then to Harry Atterton, who actually has abandoned France temporarily and is in Ludlow in Shropshire, a beautiful town. And then we end up with by going to New York and Suzanne Musho. So quite an interesting morning for those of you who want to stay with us or those who want to dip in a little while. Basically, we go 8 o'clock news, 9 o'clock the two Bs, 10 o'clock Harry, and 11 o'clock Suzanne. So do either stay with us, opt in, or however, but whatever, enjoy us. We're enjoyable. Let us see what the news is bringing this morning, because it hasn't been so great over the weekend. But is it going to be any better now? The first paper that we're looking at this morning is the Mail, and its headline is a hostile act in the heart of Parliament. Several newspapers have looked at this. There was an arrest of a researcher in Parliament and claims that he was spying for China. And police have confirmed that two men, one in his 20s and another in his 30s, were arrested under the Official Secrets Act in March. So they're only just telling us about it now. The Daily Mail leads on condemnation from MPs of a hostile act in the heart of Parliament. The quote comes from Conservative MPs Sir Ian Duncan Smith, who told the paper China sees Britain as a soft option. I'm going to make a little comment here, because the original 007 was a friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
And he passed away about 3 or 4 years ago. Had two beautiful daughters, incidentally. And I'm not going to actually mention his name simply because he has relatives in Lewis. And so Hidden Lewis reveals something else again. And he was an interesting man. A bit intense. I also met with him. He became a friend. I met a man called Gus, who was his equivalent of M. So I've brushed shoulders with the spy world. Believe me, brushing shoulders was the only spy act that I undertook that I was aware. Anyway, but here we are. It looks as if the Chinese have started to infiltrate Parliament. And as we go through the papers this morning, you will see that Rishi Sunak is taking it very, very seriously. And he's starting to lecture. But whether, in fact, lecturing the Chinese will do any good or not, I don't know. Good morning, Bethany.
Good morning.
All right, how's your view of China? Do you feel threatened by it?
It's scary to think about, in a way. I know there was a lot of, I can't remember what they were called, but a few months ago, the balloons that had cameras on them, and they were going, spy drones, they were going about all over the UK and everything.
That's right, so they were, yeah. What's happened to them, do you know?
Few people tried to shoot them down. Farmers shot them down thinking it was a threat.
I've got a BB gun, but it's in storage. I never thought of shooting down a spy. Oh, I'd better get it out, hadn't I? Just in case another spy balloon comes over my house.
It's so, like, why? Why Britain? Although, like, I mean, we don't really have anything, like, interesting.
You think not?
Nothing really happens, like, for, well, as far as we know, like, spy thing. I know that in America, they released documents from Area 51 about that there was extraterrestrial life out there, and they gathered it, and then they done autopsies and all that stuff, and like things of UFOs. Like there are so many of that, so it is quite interesting. Unless it's for, because I know I think we've lost one massive nuclear weapon that we've got. We've lost one, and it's just
disappeared.
Yeah, it's somewhere here, somewhere.
Well, the funny thing is hiding something small is difficult. Hiding something big is easy, because all you do is you put it out in plain view, and everybody walks around it.
Yeah.
But actually, have had brushes with the intelligence world, and only brushes, I can assure you. And the fact of the matter is, you wouldn't know. Your next door neighbor could be a spy, and you simply would not know until such time as they either wanted you to know, or they suddenly
they've been exposed.
So somebody comes and carts them off before they actually go back to Moscow or to Beijing or wherever. So it's not easy, and I would imagine that whatever's been going on in the House of Commons is that the security people there have been burrowing away, finding evidence against this couple of people, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go on to the next paper. The Prime Minister's China spy showdown. Well, according to the Metro, the next stage was that Sunak has warned Beijing over interference as MP's researcher is held. It says that he expressed concern about Chinese interference and at the G20 summit in India on Sunday. Now, it's funny, isn't it? In my days as a financial journalist with Reuters, G20 and G8 or G7, G8 were terribly important occasions, and they seem to be pushed to the background now.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and I should, as a journalist, I had no idea that G20 was taking place. Not much fuss was made about it. And here it is taking place in India, one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And, Hayes is sitting here preening and being pompous and so on, and had no idea that all sorts of things were happening in India.
Obviously, being so young, I've never even heard of a G20.
All right. Well, I don't like the use of figures and numbers, but G7 or G8, as it was, is the most important thing. That is the 7 most important and powerful economies in the world, of which we are one. And you've got Japan, the United States, Canada, and so on. And it went up to being G8 because after Glasnost, Russia was let in.
Oh.
And then Russia wouldn't play by the rules, so they were booted out again. G20 are the next level of important countries, and they all get together from time to time to discuss world affairs and see if there are ways that they can improve the economy and so on. I personally always look at them with suspicion. I think that there are forums where people go to tell lies. We're much better
My country's better than yours.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And look what we're doing. The Financial Times is the headline is Sunak accuses China of interfering in Britain's parliamentary democracy, and it also goes with the story that the Prime Minister confronts lie at the G20 summit, leading with the same story about the Mr. Sunak accusing China of interfering in Britain's parliamentary democracy. The paper also prominently features the aftermath of the earthquake in Morocco on its front page, alongside an image of a woman crying after she learned the fate of her relatives. Now, that was something else that I must confess is I think I'm a fanatic when it comes to rugby. So it was a rugby weekend. I more or less battened down the hatches. But
it was quite hidden because even I didn't know about the earthquake.
No, it's actually I had someone I know quite well saying, how did I feel about it? And she didn't say earthquake, so I didn't know what the hell she was talking about at first. And I had to sort of very meekly say, I'm terribly sorry. I didn't know, but over 2,000 people died. I mean, that's a lot of people. And in one particular area. And apparently the area is volatile enough that it's likely that they will get another earthquake or two.
Yeah.
So yes.
It's like the ripple effects kind of for the earthquake.
I want you to take a good look at our two faces. Here we are on a Monday morning trying to tell you what the news is, and we haven't a clue what it is ourselves. That's very naughty of us. We should never go to sleep. Never, ever. Journalists should never, ever go to sleep. Well, I wasn't asleep. I was watching the rugby. And I must say that was very uplifting. As like everybody else, I moaned when Curry was sent off after 2 minutes. No. Here we go again. By golly, they showed true grit. And not only did they take them on with 14 men against 15, but comprehensively beat them. It's very good. Very good.
Last night I was watching this series. It was about like crime and gangs in London and how it's worked up, and like it was fully researched, and then they tried to let people learn about it. So it was very emotional. It was really upsetting, but it was nice to learn and understand how easily there was quite a few kids in it, like primary school children that were a part of it. And it was so.
Yes, actually, each Christmas I do a little a bit because mostly what you get on television is buy this scent, buy these clothes, buy this car, and so on and so forth.
Black Friday sales.
Yeah, and actually, I point out that there's a billion children who aren't in school.
Yeah.
Several billion people who are starving, and so on. All while we're actually spending gross amounts of money on gifts and so on. Now, I'm not a socialist. I'm not a killjoy. I love Christmas. It's the one time of the year that I really go to town. But nonetheless, the fact that these
need to think about those properties.
These things exist is very important. Very important indeed. And the fact that 20,000. Yes, was it 20,000 people died? Did I say
2,000?
2,000. I better get that right. 2,000, yes. Yeah. You're quite right. 2,000 people died. But that's enough, isn't it?
That's 2,000 too many. honestly. That's
Now, the Daily Mirror headlines that earthquake and those people killed. It also has a headline, new dog attack chaos, terror on our streets. And it says the Daily Mirror splashes that 3 people, including an 11-year-old girl, were injured in a dog attack in Birmingham. The paper reports comments from Home Secretary Suella Braverman about the dog, saying, "We can't go on like this." Ms. Braverman said the American XL Bully is a clear and lethal danger, as she pushed for a ban on the breed. Yeah, I mean, really, it's worrying.
yeah.
I must confess, I'm ambivalent about dogs on the street. Immediately after Ceausescu had been toppled as Romanian president, I went to Romania to help protect, if you like, the media, the press there, and you had to go through back streets, and essentially it just shows what, without thinking, what happens when people in power do arbitrary acts. Ceausescu had a great big palace built. I've been in it several times. You can get lost in all the rooms. None of it is used. But he also wanted something like the Mall leading up to it. So he just arbitrarily had houses knocked down. And when people were lost their houses, they had their dogs and they just let them go onto the streets. So the dogs naturally went into packs. And you would meet a dog pack at almost every corner. The strange thing is that most of them didn't attack.
Yeah.
You got the odd one where it was a bit dicey, but most of them, all they wanted to do was to forage for food, and that's it. But nonetheless, packs of dogs on our streets, I agree with.
A lot of the time as well, it is the owner, not the dog. A lot of the time, it depends if also the owner was enticing the dog to then attack. But it's one of those things where it's the dog gets trained quite easily. American bully dogs can be the sweetest little things sometimes. Honestly, they can be the most kindest little souls and loving to families. But you entice the dog, you agitate it, you make it angry, you annoy it, and then that's the point where they would growl. That's their warnings. They growl, try and back off, shake their head, like try their best, like look away, try their best to get away from that situation before they attack.
Right.
So there's obviously might have been something in the background where it's like the owner possibly could have enticed the dog and be like, oh, go get them, like, enticing, all that behaviour, training the dog, all that's okay. Because a lot of, I know police dogs are kind of obviously trained to, they're obviously big Alsatians, like to bite but not to hurt too much, just to restrain. So if the Alsatian learned that through police dog training, and sometimes Alsatians are the cutest things when they're not protective. They can be very protective, very careful around, okay, this is my house, this is my background, what are you doing here? But
territorial.
Yeah, they need to be trained out of that sometimes. It's just a natural instinct to them.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, dog ownership is a big responsibility.
Yeah.
When I lived in Canada, I had a Great Dane. And he was 3 inches taller. They measure them at the shoulder. He was 3 inches taller than the average Great Dane.
Oh, wow.
And he was as soft as a bloody brush. If we had a cocktail party, he insisted that he came. He wouldn't take no for an answer. But then he would flop down in the middle, and people could step on him, kick him, and so on, and just look up. As long as he was at the party, he was happy enough. Right, where are we now? There, yes. Terror on our streets, and now the Guardian. This is one that I find so. Spain football boss finally quits after the World Cup kiss. So he kissed this lady on the lips.
Oh my God.
What's so special about being kissed on the lips? I thought that's what lips were for. You see, I mean, my late wife wouldn't have any of this truck of feminism. In her day, of course, it was everybody tried to stop the builders from whistling at ladies who go by. She said, if I go by and they whistle at me, I take it as a compliment. I love being whistled at. But okay, I can understand that it's debatable. Yeah. But everybody gets so very serious about these things. I just don't understand it. It's not. It's beyond my radar. Now, don't move away from me. I'm not going to kiss you. But it does seem to me that people get terribly anxious about these things when, to me, it's just shrug your shoulders and say, get on with it. The Guardian leads with a report from the village of Moulay Bram in Morocco following a Friday's earthquake. It was Friday that the earthquake took place, which killed more than 2,000 people. The area is termed the Moroccan village where death came in the night. And the story is accompanied with a photo of women at the funeral of 2 victims there. And indeed, that's a harrowing photograph. I think that one thing that we don't understand about some distant lands is that the feeling of family is very, very strong.
Yeah.
And that really their grief is perhaps far greater in the main than it would be here, where as sophisticated people, we tend to try to learn to bottle it.
Yeah, definitely.
Tell me I'm a liar.
Absolutely not.
You agree?
Yeah, a lot of people here just kind of get on as if it is just regular.
Look at her. That's why I have her on, so that she can tell me that I'm full of nonsense. This morning she's being nice. But this is a tragedy of considerable proportion. And it is difficult to imagine the awful feeling of your entire family. One day you've got 20 relatives, the next you haven't got any. The Guardian has a sub lead article. There's 184,000 cancer cases in the UK this year were preventable. Now, I'm pretty sure that the way that they come to those figures concluding is that they make calculations. You have to be very careful that we don't take these as set in stone. And I have to give full marks to people who work to raise money for research into cancer. And we have here in Lewes a charity shop as Cancer Research UK. And I had a little bit to do with it because we did a series a couple of years ago with a lady who is an artist and who painted various. She would paint local characters, and then sing them for 100 quid, which she gave to Cancer Research.
Oh, wow!
And they are for sale for those people who want it in the window, but they are rather good and very recognisable. is that my picture is down there, believe it or not, in the front window. And from time to time, I have people sort of say to me, "Oh, is that your picture, Keith?" And yes, it is. And actually, she wanted to experiment with the way she painted, and she asked me if she could redo my portrait on this new surface, and that's the one that's hanging in the shop. I've got the other one at home, and I rather like it. It's rather fun, actually. But the whole point is that they work very hard to raise lots of money for cancer research, and I sometimes think that stories like this, cases were preventable. I know people don't mean it that way, but I always think that it slightly undermines the work that these people are doing. All right. Now, the Eye, 6 more councils fighting the risk of bankruptcy. I wonder where we stand in East Sussex. But its main story is UK interest rate hikes are set to end, say the experts. UK interest rates and predictions on future rises make the splash for the Eye newspaper. The paper reports that hope grows that the Bank of England will limit future rate rises, adding the Eye's expert panel of economists forecast a less aggressive approach to tackling inflation, with the majority believing there may be only one more interest rate hike this year. Now, the interesting thing about that is that it is perceived wisdom that the only way to tackle inflation is by raising interest rates. So you make money more expensive, so people get less money, things become more expensive, people stop buying quite as much, and it slows down heating economy. But I would assume that the bank has either decided to take a risk or is found some other way to deal with it, which is not telling us. Now, you're a young, socially mobile, sweet young thing, and you've got a lovely, lovely man looking after you, or as a partner with you. You mustn't say things like that. Sounds patronizing, they say. Wish I got somebody looking after me. But tell me, and I know that, for instance, this afternoon when you finished working here, that you're going to go get your house re-roofed, or you're dealing with re-roofers. But how difficult are you finding it, the two of you, getting onto the housing ladder?
We're right now renting within my mother-in-law's house. So I'm paying rent to her for everything. So I only stay in a room, really. We're looking at places now, and it has never been more difficult than what I was really expecting it to ever be. In Scotland, I'm eligible. I'm not too sure in England yet, but Scotland, I'm eligible to deem as homeless. And that way we get a council house. It does help. You would have to move quite a bit, but a lot of my family has done that because they can't afford it. So it's one of those where it's kind of a, not quite a legacy, but kind of, they can't afford it. So then how can I possibly afford anything like that?
Right. Some fans checking in. So you're living in your aunt's house at the moment?
My mother-in-law's.
Oh, mother-in-law's house. Right. Okay. But are you planning? I mean, you talk about Scotland. Are you planning to stay here and get a house, or will you return to Scotland?
We're looking at both areas. So we're looking at my hometown area, the little towns around my hometown, and we're also looking for places in Eastbourne, here, Brighton, etc. We're looking at both sides, seeing which one would be more deemable for us. So we're open to the idea. My partner is more open to the idea. He loves Scotland. He is absolutely in love with Edinburgh, and I can't blame him for that. But I wouldn't mind. I've got pretty much all my family there. I know they would support me, and no matter what kind of choice I did. So I'm very more on the fence about it. I can see both sides, but I look at it more, it's not just about Edinburgh and making it feel like home in a way.
Right.
It's more, what can we afford? Here's what we've got, but then how much is this going to be? How much is this going to be? I look at more the political and kind of the more of that kind of stuff. But we talk about, when we look at a house, we're like, okay, like, how would we decorate this? How would we do this? We look at more, how can we make this look into our home? After it's like, okay, so it's 800, let's say 800 a month for a studio. Okay, how can we make this a home even though it's small?
Yes, is that what it is, 800 for a studio?
Absolutely. I've never seen 800 for a studio. Hang on, I'll check the rates now. So Rightmove is a great app for all the rent and stuff. And
right.
So to rent, let's say Lewis, East Sussex. So for a 1-bedroom apartment in Lewis, 1,100 a month.
Ooh, 1,100 for a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But I can understand why people say this is an impossible town to live in, particularly if you want to go up the ladder. But the issue of housing is sometimes we feel forced to do dramatic things like move.
Yeah.
I've kicked around the world. I mean, not as a family, but I've lived, working, living in 40 countries in the world, and I've sometimes that's living for just 2 or 3 weeks. But I mean, I lived in Kosovo for 2.5 years. I lived in Bosnia for 1.5 years. I lived in Romania for 1.5 years. So I'm fairly familiar with what it's like living abroad. The one thing I would say to any young couple, or for any couple for that matter, is when you're considering moving, is don't do it on the basis that you thought a place was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
The grass is always greener
on the
other side of the fence. Or on the other side of the hill, isn't it? And I had an aunt and uncle, sadly both above the clouds now, but they lived and worked in Wolverhampton in the Midlands, and they spent a holiday in Ireland, and they decided that they would take early retirement and they would go off to Ireland because it was so idyllic, and they lived to regret it for the rest of their life. They found that moving from family and friends and things that are familiar, doing things which on holiday seemed wonderful, is on everyday life awful. And it was really sad and tragic. Luckily, I went to work in Northern Ireland, and I was able to motor down and visit them from time to time to give them some comfort. But be very careful when you make a choice of where to go and live. By the way, it is right now 18 degrees centigrade. It's going to reach about 23 today, with just a gentle breeze. So once again, be careful. It is a little bit overcast. It's not going to be broad sunshine until about 1 o'clock today. Then we're going to have a whole host. The afternoon is going to be hot.
Lovely.
Going to be hot. Yes. Right. Okay. So the Daily Star. You can always guarantee that the Daily Star will give us a little bit of a laugh. But it's actually dealing with the heat wave today. It says that the Great British Bunk-Off, 28 degrees centigrade. It says millions skip work in the final autumn blast. Well, I don't think it's going to be 28 degrees today. It's going to be pretty warm. And if the Star is correct, is that people take advantage of the hot weather following the unprecedented heat wave. The paper says millions of staff are ditching work today to enjoy one last blast of the 28 degrees heat wave before temperatures begin to drop. So it's going to get cooler next week.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yes, we say, and then we'll say, "Oh, do you remember what happened to the heat?" The Daily Express: Rishi confronts China's premier over spy in Parliament. Oh, but that's not its main story. That's not the main story of the Express. It says a tearful TV legend reveals dementia diagnosis. The news that retired news presenter Alistair Stewart is living with dementia is the lead for the Daily Express. The story features a picture of the broadcaster as he was interviewed by a former colleague on GB News this past yesterday, during which he revealed he had been diagnosed with early onset of vascular dementia and has suffered a severe series of minor strokes. I have to say, I mean, as you well know, I'm approaching 35, and I start to worry about these things. It's difficult to determine between the onset of dementia and just simply old age. Our minds do tend to, the brain tends to sort of flake a little bit, no matter whether you've got dementia or not. And I sometimes wonder when I struggle for a word or a name, whether in fact, I'm heading towards becoming a victim of dementia. I don't think so at the moment because I'm reasonably. Am I reasonably compos mentis?
Yeah.
Oh, good. That's why I have it here. Say nice things to me. But it is a worry for older people. Is this happening to me? And sometimes, particularly when I'm really the very worst at putting my phone down and walking away to another part of the house or whatever, and then forgetting where I left my phone until it actually rings, and then it's always so far away that I can never catch up to it. There we go. But it is, when you are dealing with older people, be careful that you don't get too upset if, in fact, we seem to not be moving at the speed that you would like as a youngster. It's not that we're being difficult. It's just we've just forgotten. At least I can remember my name. Who am I?
Don't know.
She's forgotten too. We both got the same thing. Okay, that is the newspaper headlines. I think we haven't got any more. No, let's get the real forecast, shall we? So we're not telling porkies. Here we go. It's going to reach 23 degrees degrees today, sunny and a gentle breeze.
1 o'clock.
Up until noon, we're going to have some clouds, and it'll reach about 21 degrees. At noon, it's going to start to turn upwards again at 22, 23. So in the afternoon, it's going to settle into 22 all afternoon until 5 o'clock, when it'll drop slightly till 21. But even at 7 o'clock tonight, it's going to be 19. And the evening will only drop to 17. And it's going to be clear. So it's going to be one of those muggy evenings where it can be a bit uncomfortable. So be prepared. But tomorrow, Tuesday, it's going to maintain 23. Tuesday. Sorry?
Tomorrow's Tuesday.
Tomorrow's Tuesday. Right. Where am I? Tuesday, the 12th. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes. It's going to be 23 degrees. Again, we're going to replicate today. So we've got another day yet to get through or to enjoy, whichever you think. And then on the 13th, it's going to drop slightly to 21. But the rest of the week, it's going to stay consistently right throughout the week, 21, 21, 22, 22, 21. And not until next Monday will it drop again till 19. So we've got plenty of sunshine on the way. And we need to be pretty careful. Wear a hat, right? Wear a nice hat. Enjoy a hat. I've got about 20 hats now. I started collecting them because it is give us a chance to plug our documentary. The Bloody Past of a Tiny Town is Mirador's documentary about Lewis and about the blood that's been spilt on the high street here. And it's in 8 episodes. And when I made it, I had a different hat for each episode. Now, in moving, I've lost 2 of them, but I've still got 6 of them, and I've added another 3. And I have to say that people have said very nice things about this. I was a bit dubious about wearing this, but people seem to like it.
It really suits you.
Does it?
Yeah.
It's for an old fart. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Well, anyway, I've forgotten why I even started talking about hats now. But I went to very briefly to the open day at the court on the weekend as part of Heritage Week, and I say that because I'm looking across at it right now, and it's back to normal with people going in because they're going to appear before the beak rather than going in to take a look around. It was a very popular occasion, and we had planned to do some filming, but despite the fact that we were led to believe that we could film on that particular day, we were very restricted. The lady had a lovely phrase: no locks, no docks, no doors, no something else that rhymed, which left you with really filling the ceiling. And then to top it all, one of the things that I've learned to do is to fall very gracefully, right? Because I've got Parkinson's, and so I fall from time to time. There's so many stairs in this thing. I fell on Saturday, and by golly, I went arse over tip, to be quite honest with you, onto the floor. Luckily, it all kicked in. I have learned how to fall and not hurt myself, and I didn't.
That's good.
Yes, all in one piece. But it is interesting to take a look inside. I have been in as a juror. I have been in as a journalist on many occasions. Mostly my legal work or my work in the courts, although I have been into the Old Bailey for a trial, but in the legal courts were in Canada. And I think I told you last week that I actually saw the death sentence passed. So that's pretty somber. And there were a number of very famous people who were found guilty and sentenced to death in Lewis Crown Court. Not all of them were hanged in Lewis, but a fair proportion were. And they used to, the thousands would turn out to actually watch somebody hanged. And what we nowadays say it's a gala day was actually a gallows day, and rather more somber than the meaning we give to it now.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. What are you going to say so far?
My hometown, we celebrate a gala day. We have like floats, parades, stuff like that. Now that I know that, I'm definitely thinking of it a lot more differently.
Actually, the one of the very interesting things was that we think in the past rural England, but of course there wasn't a hell of a lot to do in the villages.
Yeah.
And so a hanging was we've got to go to the hanging. And what increased the numbers, because you would get, I mean, the last lady to be hanged in public at Lewis Prison, there were 4,000 people there, and people say, "Oh, poo-poo, that's only a small amount," and that there were much bigger hangings in Hastings and so on. But what increased the numbers was the train. They could pack a picnic and go and catch a train to wherever the hanging was. and depending on how the prisoner died, is they would either cheer or boo or whatever. The favorite people to be hanged and get some sort of accolade were highwaymen. Those stand and deliver. Yeah. Some of them were real dandies when they were caught. The people sort of thought, "Oh, let them go." Such a nice chap. Right. It is now 10 to 9 or thereabouts. In fact, it's later than that. It's 8:51. We have coming up in a moment the two Bs. So we will say goodbye temporarily, although we will be along with the boys. Are there things, Bethany, that happened over the weekend that you think that we've missed this morning that you think we should mention?
Not over the top of my head. Sure, something will come up in my head and I'll end up saying it. But...
Yeah, well, it's all right. You got plenty of time to say it. Okay, then we will say toodle pip, and we'll be back with the two Bs in about 7 minutes' time. Let's see if we can find. Yes, here we go. That's the one if we do it in reverse. Toodle pip for the moment.